Later that night after the concert, he trended on social media. Starboy revealed, and he's a hero. Disabled boy, abandoned by mother, becomes Nigeria's favorite musician. People started looking for Madame Sandra. And she started looking for him. Elizonum sat in the back seat of the car, staring out of the window as the crowd outside screamed his name. The name they had come to love, Starboy. He could still hear the echo of the applause from the concert hall in his ears. He held the edge of his wheelchair tightly, his fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the shock of everything that had just happened. He had sung his heart out in front of thousands of people, and they had loved him. As Uncle Tony drove through the busy streets of Enugu that night, he looked back at the boy and smiled. "You did it," he said. Elizonum blinked and turned toward him. They didn't laugh. "Why would they laugh?" Tony said. "You're a star." "But they saw my wheelchair. They saw me." Tony's voice softened. "And they saw strength. They saw courage. You didn't beg them to love you. You gave them something real, and they felt it." Elizonum looked down at his hands and nodded slowly. That night, he couldn't sleep. Messages poured in from all over the country. People were tagging him on social media, sharing clips from his performance, and calling him a gift to the world. Someone even started a hashtag, Starboy for Life. Uncle Tony's small house was suddenly the center of attention. News reporters, bloggers, even musicians were begging for interviews with Starboy. But Tony carefully chose who to speak to. "We're not chasing fame," he reminded Elizonum. "We're using your story to lift others." And that was exactly what they did. Elizonum started working on more songs, real stories. He wrote about rejection, about hope, about surviving pain. One of his songs, titled My Room Was My World, described his life growing up locked away, singing to the walls. It made people cry. Disabled children in hospitals and schools sent him voice notes and videos, singing his songs with pride. For the first time in years, Elizonum felt like he had a family. Not just Tony, not just Chica, who now visited him often, but thousands of people who believed in him. Then, one morning, everything changed again. Tony was on his phone scrolling through the news when he paused. He tapped the screen and read the headline again, his eyes slowly widening. Starboy's mother found. Elizonum froze. Tony looked at him, unsure what to say. The article said Madame Sandra had been found in a small town, working in a food canteen. She had broken down after seeing her son's video. She had confessed to abandoning him out of shame and fear. The reporters had taken her photo, an older woman now, thinner, with sad eyes and a hand over her mouth. They quoted her saying, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't know he would become this great. I want to see my son." Elizonum read the article quietly. Then he pushed the phone away. He didn't speak for the rest of the day. Later that evening, he sat outside on the balcony, looking at the stars. Tony joined him, carrying a mug of tea. "She wants to see you," Tony said gently. Elizonum nodded. "I know." Tony waited, then asked, "Do you want to see her?" The boy's voice was calm, but firm. "I don't know what I want." Tony didn't push him further. He just sat there beside him, watching the night sky. But the world didn't stop. The next day, Madame Sandra came to Enugu. She arrived with a small nylon bag and a faded scarf covering her hair. She stood outside the gates of the building where Starboy lived, crying and begging the guards to let her in. "I'm his mother," she repeated. "Please, I'm his mother." News spread fast. Cameras appeared. Reporters rushed to the gate. The story was getting bigger. The abandoned son, the returning mother. Elizonum saw it all on TV. He asked Tony to turn it off. But later that night, when everything was quiet, He rolled into the living room and said, "Let her come in tomorrow. One time. Just once." Tony nodded. The next day, Sandra was allowed in. She walked in slowly, holding her bag close to her chest. Her eyes scanned the room nervously until they landed on the boy in the wheelchair. He was older now, taller, stronger. He had grown into a handsome young man, but the moment she saw his face, she knew it was him. She burst into tears. "My son, Elizonam." He didn't move. She dropped her bag and ran toward him, but Tony stepped in front of her. "Please," he said. "Let him speak first." Sandra stood back, shaking. Elizonam looked at her, looked into her face. The face of the woman who had given birth to him, fed him, but also abandoned him. He took a deep breath. "Why are you here?" he asked softly. Sandra began to cry louder. "I made a mistake. I was ashamed. I didn't know how to raise you. I was young, alone, and poor. You were my mother," he replied. "You were all I had." "I know," she whispered. "I was scared. Every day I live with that pain. But I've changed. I want to be in your life now. I want to make things right." Elizonam stared at her. "Where were you when I cried in the dark?" he asked. "Where were you when I was hungry for 3 days? When I sang to myself because no one else would talk to me?" Sandra sank to her knees. "I'm sorry." He blinked back tears, but his voice was steady. "I don't hate you," he said. "But I don't need you anymore." The room went silent. Sandra reached out her hand. "Let me just hug you." He rolled his wheelchair back slightly. "I can't." Tony stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I think it's time to go," he said. Sandra cried all the way to the door. She looked back once more, but the boy had already turned away. That was the last time she saw him. After she left, Elizonam went to his room and cried. Not because he hated her, but because he finally understood something. He had survived without her. He had built a life, a voice, and a future without the woman who gave him life. And now, that life was just beginning. He poured all his emotions into a new song titled, "I Forgive You." It was soft, painful, and powerful. He never mentioned his mother's name, but the message was clear. People everywhere cried when they heard it. "I forgive you," he sang, "but I won't open the same door again." The song became the most streamed track in the country. Later that month, Elizonam launched a foundation to support children with disabilities. He called it the Starboy Foundation. They gave wheelchairs to kids, paid school fees, and organized music classes in hospitals. He became a voice for the voiceless, a light for those still trapped in dark rooms. He was no longer just Starboy. He was a symbol of survival, of strength, and of shining, even when broken, and the world couldn't get enough of him. The day started like any other. Elizonam was in his studio working on a new song. He had just finished recording a verse when Chica entered the room with a smile on her face and a phone in her hand. "You need to see this," she said. He turned his wheelchair slightly and looked at her. "What is it?" She passed him the phone. It was a clip from a popular TV show. They were talking about him again. Not about his music this time, but about his foundation. One of the children his organization had helped had just won a national music competition. The boy had no legs. He had been given a wheelchair, music lessons, and support through the Starboy Foundation. And now he was holding a trophy and giving thanks to Elizonam on live TV. Tears filled Elizonam's eyes as he listened to the little boy's speech. "I want to be like Starboy," the boy said proudly, "because he showed me that broken things can still shine." He placed the phone down slowly and looked away, his chest rising and falling as emotion filled him. Chica came closer. "You're doing well, Elo. You're helping people." He nodded quietly. "I just wanted them to have what I didn't." Later that evening, Uncle Tony called a meeting with Elizondo, Chica, and the rest of the team. He said something that shocked them all. "I've been offered a deal by a major international music company. They want to sign Starboy, but not just sign him, they want to take him global." The room was silent. Chica gasped softly. Elizondo stared at Tony. "Global?" Tony nodded. "Tours, albums, collaborations with world-famous artists. They said they've never seen anyone like you. Your story, your voice, your message. It's powerful." Elizondo rolled back slightly and rested his chin in his hand. He was quiet for a long time. "Will it change me?" he finally asked. Tony sat forward. "Only if you let it. But you'll have a bigger stage now. More people will hear you. More kids will know they can be more than what the world calls them." Elizondo nodded slowly. "Then let's do it." The news broke the next day. Starboy signs international deal. The internet went wild. He was invited to speak at conferences, perform at award shows, and appear in interviews. Everyone wanted to hear from the boy in the wheelchair with the golden voice and the broken past. But as his light grew brighter, so did the noise from his past. Madame Sandra started granting interviews of her own. She told her side of the story. How she had been young, alone, and afraid. How she had regretted everything. How she had tried to reconnect. Some people felt pity for her. Others were angry. "How can she show up now?" they asked. "Where was she when he was crying in a dark room?" Elizondo didn't say a word. He stayed silent as the world argued. Then one day his phone rang. It was Chica. "Hello. There's something you need to see." He rolled to his laptop and opened the link she sent. It was a video. Sandra had fallen sick. She was in a small hospital, lying on a bed, looking frail and weak. She had been diagnosed with a chronic illness. And in the video, she was crying. "I know I failed him," she said, her voice shaking. "But I want to see him one more time before I die. Just to hold his hand. Just to tell him I love him. Even if he doesn't love me back." Elizondo closed the laptop and sat still for a long time. That night he didn't sleep. He remembered the cold days, the hunger, the loneliness. But he also remembered her face. Not just her angry face, but her tired one. The one that looked lost and unsure. The next morning he told Uncle Tony and Chica he wanted to visit the hospital. The journey was quiet. When they got there, he stayed in the car for a while. Then slowly wheeled himself inside. Sandra was sleeping. Her hair had turned completely gray. Her arms were thin. Her face was no longer angry. It was empty, like someone who had fought too many battles and lost every one. He rolled beside her bed and stared. A nurse noticed him and gasped quietly. "You're—" He placed a finger to his lips. "Please." The nurse smiled and left them alone. After a few minutes, Sandra's eyes fluttered open. She turned her head weakly and looked at him. It took her a second to realize who he was. Then her lips trembled. "My son," she whispered. He didn't speak. She lifted a shaking hand slowly toward his. He let her touch it. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I didn't deserve you. I'm so sorry. You don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. She blinked at him, surprised. "I already forgave you," he said. "Long ago." A tear rolled down her cheek. "But I didn't know how to tell you that I missed you," she said. "Every day." "I missed you too," he replied softly. "But now I belong to the world." She nodded, understanding. "Can I hug you?" she asked. He didn't answer. He leaned forward and let her hold him weakly. Her arms were light like feathers. "Thank you," she said. He stayed there for a while, then slowly pulled back. "I have to go now," he said. She nodded. "Go and shine. You're not just my son. You're the world's son now." He smiled faintly. "Goodbye." She closed her eyes again. He left the room. 3 days later, she died peacefully in her sleep. The news broke gently. He didn't post about it. He didn't speak about it. But at his next concert, standing in front of thousands of people, Elizonum paused before the final song. "There are some wounds we carry for years," he said, "and some that never fully heal. But we must forgive. Not for them, but for us, so we can grow." Then he sang a new song, one nobody had ever heard before. It was a song of release, of love that wasn't perfect, but still mattered, of pain that didn't break him, of strength, of light. The crowd cried. Months passed. Starboy became more than a musician. He became a movement. Schools invited him to speak. Parents told their children his story. Hospitals painted his quotes on their walls. Kids in wheelchairs wrote letters to him every week. And he never forgot where he came from. He built a music school in his old neighborhood. He named it Room of Light, after the place where he first found his voice. He opened a home for children with no families. He named it Sandra's House. When people asked why, he said, "Because even broken people can leave something beautiful behind." And whenever he performed, he always ended with the same words. "My name is Elizonum, but the world calls me Starboy. I was born in a room with no light, but I became a voice in the world. Not because I was perfect, but because I never stopped singing." And the world listened. Lesson: never judge or abandon someone because of their weakness or condition, because the same person you reject today may rise from pain, grow through silence, and one day shine so brightly that the whole world celebrates what you were once too blind to love. Thank you so much for watching this story on Luxury Stories 24/7. We hope it touched your heart and taught you something special. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing and emotional stories every day. We would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. What did you learn? What touched you the most? Until next time, keep showing love, stay kind, and remember, every story